So, uh, finishing off, as I say, for the scripts that were published in Forgotten Gems, Volume 2, Come Wander With Me is one of the last episodes that was originally broadcast. And a long time ago, I was remembering, a long time ago on this old Fifth Dimension Twilight Zone website, which is a fantastic website. There was a message board, and everybody would go on there and be talking about what episodes they liked and what episodes they didn't. And being one of the less popular ones, Come Wander With Me, I think I was just kind of got a more or less a bad rap. But I remember somebody on one of those message boards, who was criticizing it, was saying that the performance of Gary Crosby can be described in one word, and that word is constipated. So that was a very interesting kind of description of it, and maybe it's true, but looking back on it, I actually watched this yesterday in preparation for talking about it today. I don't like to just be extemporaneous. I don't like to be like a certain politician who comes up to the podium and just extemporaneously blah, 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 blah. I don't like to do that. I like to be prepared. And I was talking on another video that Ted Post was like one of the most prepared directors in Hollywood. So having met Ted many years ago, I remember, really just how meticulous that guy was with like everything he did in his life. I didn't know Ted tremendously well, but in talking with him and talking with people who knew him, they all kind of said the same thing, these few people who I talked to about him. Ted did not direct Come Wander With Me, Richard Donner did, but he was just a very prepared director. So when I talk about these things, it's always kind of with Ted in the back of my mind. It's like I want to be prepared for discussing them intelligently. So anyway, Richard Donner, as I say, was the one who directed Come Wander With Me, in addition to From Agnes with Love and 4 other ones all from the last season. I guess by that point they figured that he was able and competent, and he certainly was. But Gary Crosby, let's just talk about him a bit. He, of course, was in the shadow of his much more famous father. I don't think he ever really went very far as an actor. But he was on a number of shows, including throughout the 60s and 70s. I think his career kind of went south in the 80s, and he really didn't do much after that. And then he died in the 90s. But he was actually in a kind of not similar Perry Mason episode the next year, but it was. The name of that episode was The Case of the Frustrated Folk Singer. And of course, Come Wander With Me was about just such a person, a frustrated folk singer. So I have to say, Anthony Wilson's script was really one of the most original. And I think Gary Crosby was well cast in the part, despite the fact that he might have appeared to have some challenges with it. But you watch him, and he's really a pretty natural actor. I mean, he does a little bit more than just memorize the lines, but he had some the dialogue of the script, which you can read in my book, was definitely not really simplistic dialogue. It was fairly detailed, and he did a good job of acting. I think the character was kind of oddly written, and but I think he did the best that he possibly could have with it. I don't know who else would have played the part. He actually, if nobody else, then him. And actually, Richard Donner, I know, liked his performance. I read that someplace, that Donner actually liked Crosby as an actor and liked his performance. So, needless to say, Come Wander With Me is a cycle. It's a cyclic story, and a very interesting one at that, and that's why you should really read the script. And as, of course, Bill Frug mentioned more than once for any number of interviewers who interviewed him for books and magazines and whatever, he said it looked good on paper, but it just did not work out well on screen. And I think what happened was it was just a little too complicated. And cyclic stories always kind of have that problem. They're harder to do, and unless you really have a good idea that's strong enough for it, it's probably just not going to work. But of course, the story goes, Gary Crosby's character, who was of course Floyd Burney. Floyd Burney goes into the backwoods looking for songs. Okay, well that's kind of interesting. And he stops at this music shop, and this old man says, "No, I don't have anything." And then he hears this song being sung in the distance. So then, song being sung by this gal Mary Rachel, who is either a nun or she's dressed for a funeral, presumably Floyd Burney's funeral, and at the beginning we see his headstone, and then we see the events that led up to it, and then his headstone again at the very end. So playing the part of Mary Rachel, who gives Floyd this song, which he is not able to use if for no other reason than then Floyd gets killed at the end. So she's this kind of hippie gal who gives him this song. She's attached to or betrothed to this guy Billy Rayford, who we actually see, who he shows up with a rifle and tells Floyd to get away, and then Floyd ends up killing him with a wooden guitar. Okay, so Bonnie Beecher, who later became Mrs. Hugh Romney, better known as Wavy Gravy, the pop legend and activist, and I've never met the guy, but I really wish that I could. They married and formed this artistic organization that is still going up in Northern California, and I believe it's Mendocino County, this summer arts program. So, and her name is not Bonnie Beecher anymore. I can't even pronounce her first name, but her last name is Romney. Her first name that she's had for many years now sounds Indian, but I can't pronounce it. So anyhow, Come Wander With Me really is worth a look. It gets dissed a lot. It gets a lot of kind of short shrift, and the reason is simply because what was produced was not as good as what was on paper, and what ended up on the screen was just kind of a patchwork quilt of different footage that I think was set up rather well. The outdoor, sometimes outdoor shooting is not all that convincing. It's like, oh, this is on the back lot. There's nothing really good about this. This is all just, there's buildings like 15 feet away with the cameras turned around. But I think they went out farther for this. I don't know where it was shot, but I think Richard Donner did a good job with creating a good atmosphere of it. And if nothing else, that's probably the strongest part of it. And it was really pretty well shot, really pretty well photographed. So anyhow, that is Come Wander With Me, and I won't criticize it any more than I have. I think it's been criticized enough already, but it definitely is worth a second look. And if you do have the interest in reading the script, get a hold of one of my books in e format or in paperback format, and compare it to what was filmed, because I think you'll probably be kind of pleasantly surprised. It is a good story, but really it's just a product of a series that had run its course and just kind of came along too late. And had it been done earlier in the series, I think it would have been, maybe with a different producer, it would probably have gotten the attention that it deserved. So that is it. Until next